Yeah, I definitely need some music that plays before these streams start, don't I? My hair a mess. I can't see anything. How you all doing? Oh, there's nobody here yet because there's been no stream on, and that's how this works. That's how this goes. I do need music that plays before this starts, don't I? Hello. Welcome to Early Morning Barking, talking about BPD and MPD by somebody that has both. I've tweeted and stuff. Really do need like a countdown thing and a live thing, and I'm still figuring out how to do live streams and that sort of thing from a technical standpoint, and I have weird things. I'm still struggling with OBS. And am I quiet? I feel quiet. I don't know. Oh, there's nobody in the chat room yet. There's nobody anywhere yet. We'll keep going. Fun. Fun. I used to prefer doing these not on video, so you couldn't see me, which was, in all honesty, a lot easier to do. Hello, Mr. Ramstein in the chat. Or is it Ramstein? I don't know. But hello, and thank you for saying hello. It's good to know I'm not alone here. As I go around clicking on things, thinking, what else can I post where? Because I have like no Twitter followers. How many Twitter followers do I have here? 95. I used to have 95. I used to have lots more than that, actually. I think I was up to 1,300 at one point. I used to have a different account, and it's gone now, obviously. 95. I try not to care. Like, I'm not trying to be a Twitter person because Twitter's the worst thing on the internet. And I've looked at some of the things that are supposed to be the worst things on the internet, and I've not ever seen anything as bad as Twitter. Honestly, I have searched far and wide, and there is nothing worse than Twitter. I need to update the font on that logo. It's just occurred to me. Or is that the current font? I shouldn't change fonts all the time. Twitter's just the worst thing. It really is. I mean, there are other websites that are said to be worse, and like your classic 4chans and what have you. And they're nothing like as bad. I mean, there's some hideous stuff on there. I'm not gonna like defend it all at all. But it seems far less reinforcing, and it's less mainstream. And the fact that it's less mainstream, you know, they're not reporting what's on 4chan on the news and that kind of thing. That, you know, they're not publishing what people have said on there, because that would be horrible. But they do with Twitter, and they act like it's a real place, like it matters and that kind of thing. So I'm not trying to be a Twitter person. I hate Twitter. But if you want people to know that you're doing a live show and that sort of thing, it is a really handy thing. And if you want to like show off that you've put out some content, and look, this is pretty much all my Twitter feed is just links to stuff that I've done or I'm doing. Look, another live show, the British Tech Network's big show. I do that every Thursday. I never talk about that. It's not mental health based. Does everything have to be mental health based? No, it doesn't. I have other interests, you know. But Twitter, oh God, do I hate it. And then Facebook is fine, but it's not as good at like an instant messaging thing. Like Twitter's good as a big alarm system. So I put out a tweet and it goes out there and lots of people see it right away. It's much more immediate. Facebook's a longer term thing, and it's not as useful as that. I mean, I have not that one. That's Twitter, you fool. Early morning barking Facebook. And I don't do anything with this either, because what am I going to do? And it's forever telling me I've got notifications, 3 up at the top. I do not have 3 notifications. It just won't stop saying 3 up at the top. Facebook is one of the worst made websites that I use. This is not the show, by the way. This is me just moaning about stuff while I wait for people to turn up. I think they call it filler. Or is this vamping? It's talking poo until people turn up is what it's doing. But hey, look, this is my life. I'm just showing you. Facebook sucks just as bad as Twitter does. I like Instagram, but I don't know what to do with it. I put some videos on it sometimes. It's what I do. If this was the show, I'd still be down with it, says the nameless narcissist in the chat. I'm happy to do this. I'll just sit and talk crap for a while. How are you all doing anyway? Times are tough right now. People are slapping Oscar hosts left, right, and centre. It's a terrifying time, isn't it? I'm terrified of most things at the moment. It's much nicer just staying in. Look, I have a dog mug as well. It's so easy to just talk crap on camera. And I used to do this with podcasting as well. Look, I have a dog mug. You just like, I've been watching a lot of Harry Mack on YouTube, who is just a breathtakingly good freestyle rapper. If you haven't heard of Harry Mack, go and look him up on YouTube. The man's just a machine. He's incredible. And he does this great thing where he'll just rap about suggestions people give him, be it words or he's expanding it out to like sentences and situations and so, and he just freestyle raps about anything, and he's brilliant. And he does this thing where he goes on Omegle and does a freestyle rap for the people that he ends up chatting to, and he'll start talking about rapping about stuff in the room and the t-shirt they've got on and what they did when he called them and all that kind of stuff, and it's so clever. I'll just go, look, I've got a dog mug. That's the difference. That's the difference. That right there. There's not a clever freestyle rap. We're not going to rap about the dog mug. Look, I've got a dog mug. Should we talk about some mental health things? Should we do that? Let's do that. Because that is why we're supposed to be here. And I feel like I'm, distracting the class, so to speak. But that's what I do. I digress. I do rabbit holes and get lost in what I'm talking about. And I sort of split on stuff. There's a segue for you. Let's look at splitting on stuff. And I like to use these articles that I find as a little visual aid. Some of them are useful, some of them are not. Most of them are not. Let's be perfectly honest. Most of them are a bit simplified and a bit garbagey and a bit, I don't know. Let's see. From verywellmind.com, splitting and borderline personality disorder, a defense mechanism where everything is black or white, by a PhD, medically reviewed by Daniel B. Block, MD. There he is. That's Daniel right there. Hello, Daniel. Let's see, though. Splitting is a term used in psychiatry to describe the inability to hold opposing thoughts, feelings, or beliefs. Some might say that a person who splits sees the world in terms of black or white, all or nothing. It's a distorted way of thinking in which the positive or negative attributes of a person or event are neither weighed nor cohesive. Okay. Yeah, that's it. I mean, they know what they're talking about, really. It wasn't going to be utter garbage. Everything's good or bad. Everything's black or white, right or wrong, good or evil. All of these things. And I mean, look, they centered it around a person or event. I would say it can be anything and everything. Anything and everything. There are lots of examples of this in my own life. I can point to lots of examples of this in other people's lives. I mean, there's lots of Steve Jobs examples on this, wherever it came from for him. This was definitely a trait that he had. This was definitely something he did. And there is so much to cover with this. It's such a complicated issue. There's so much to it. I've had trouble doing it in one video. I've done it over several videos. because it's such a big thing. I mean, what do we have here? What is splitting? Splitting is considered a defense mechanism by which people with borderline personality disorder can view people, events, or even themselves in all or nothing terms. Splitting allows them to readily discard things they have assigned as bad and to embrace things they consider good, even if those things are harmful or risky. That's saying the same thing again. Effects of splitting. I mean, they are numerous, but we have big ones. And when I think of the things that I have split on one way or another, it's had so many effects because we have to determine a couple of things, right? Whether we're dealing with splitting on a person or an object or an event or anything else or yourself or whatever. It all has different effects, and you might have to do various amounts of cleanup afterwards. And in the moment, this is what's tricky with splitting, is that in the moment it's fine, right? In the moment everything makes perfect sense, everything is spot on, brilliant, perfect, you have figured everything out. And you know, that in itself has different effects on you based on what it is you're doing it about, right? It can be useful if you're doing it, say, on an object, right? There are times in life when it is fully appropriate to sort of analyze deeply the pros and cons of a particular product versus a different thing, right? Which laptop am I going to buy? Which car am I going to buy? And to feel good about that decision, one way or another. What we're talking about, though, in a splitting situation is we're talking about extremes, as that always is with BPD. So if you're splitting on a thing, you might be in a situation whereby your laptop is the best laptop and all the others are garbage, right? And I get like this about lots of things. I struggle to accept that there's any human alive who can afford an iPhone who chooses not to have one, right? Because there's the one I've chosen, and then there's garbage. There's no in between. I try and behave diplomatically. Like I try and do the whole like, oh, I see why you've made your choices. I see what you like about the thing you like and all that kind of thing. But really I'm thinking, wow, are you insane? Are you crazy? How can any reasonable person have arrived at the decision you've arrived at? And that just stays true for so many things. There is for every possible type of thing, there is an ideal version of that thing, and everything else is garbage. And you sort of are bewildered why everything else is garbage, or how anybody ever decides that they should buy that. People is a even harder one, because when you're splitting on people, that affects somebody else, and that has potential to cause harm and upset and to ruin a relationship one way or another, right? Somebody's either good or bad. When you're looking at somebody as being all good, you might even be favorite personing that person. That might be the thing that you do, that nobody's all good, but you're idealizing somebody, you're putting somebody up on that pedestal. And so that's not good. But then you have the opposite split, which is far more common. Well, one I've done far more, which is where somebody will do something to cross you. Anything. And look, when we're talking about splitting, when we're in a situation with someone where we're seeing them as either all good or all bad, and they are currently all good, it doesn't take much to push them the other way, to just fly off the handle and see them as human garbage suddenly. And usually for me, what that would be is they would do something that I didn't want them to do. They would behave in a way that I deemed unreasonable or unfair or whatever. And I've cut a lot of people out of my life altogether because of that. Because that's how that goes, right? You just done with you. Goodbye. And there have been people where I have just systematically wiped out all evidence that I ever had any contact or dealings with them whatsoever. Because I've just gone from being their mate to done, had enough. There's no in between. There's just that this person has angered me now. And, you know, that article talked about splitting being a defense mechanism. For me personally, that is where the MPD starts to take over as well. Splitting is where these two mesh together and encourage each other. So if I split on a person because they've annoyed me, I can then take it from the MPD side of things and start running with it and be like, well, I didn't need them. I didn't want them. I'm so much better than them. How dare they do the thing that I didn't want or expect them to do? How dare they have free will and personal autonomy when really I know the best thing they should be doing? I know the correct thing for them to be doing, and they aren't doing that. Therefore, they're scum. And I need to just tell the world that they're scum and cut them out of my life forever. I've done that with so many people over the years. So many people. And look, at the time of doing it, it all seemed like the right thing to do. At no point did it seem like the wrong thing to do. In every single situation, as far as I was concerned, I had been wronged. I had been harmed. I had been the victim of something. And so cutting somebody out of my life was purely like a defense mechanism and something to just protect me. That was what was keeping me safe. And the truth is that of all the people I've known in my life, very few of them have actually ever done anything to me. It's not nobody. We all have our fallings out. We all have people that do have a go at us one way or another. But it's very small usually. Right? I've fallen out with more people over nothing than over something. And that's just been my doing. You know, that's part of all of this, of the splitting. Events and stuff, splitting on those, I don't know, it's the same sort of thing. Everything's just good or bad. I mean, looking at this, going back to this article, examples of splitting behavior may include opportunities can either have no risk or be a complete con. People can either be evil and crooked or angels and perfect. Science, history, and news is either a complete fact or a complete lie. Things are either always or never. When things go wrong, a person will feel cheated, ruined, or screwed. What makes splitting all the more confusing is that the belief can be sometimes ironclad, exactly, or shift back and forth from one moment to the next. People who are split are often seen to be overly dramatic or overwrought, especially when declaring that things have either completely fallen apart or completely turned around. Such behavior can be exhausting to those around them. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's when you know you're being a pain, right? That's when you know you're starting to wind people up in the world. When you're back and forthing. The quote from Arrested Development that constantly plays in my head is, "I've made a huge mistake." And that feeds into like the second guessing every decision. And there's a video on that as well. Second guessing every decision, that it's you split on everything immediately. I've made a huge mistake, and it's always a huge mistake. It's never, oh, I might have not done the right thing. I don't know. Some of this is good, I suppose. You know, it's always worrying that you've done the wrong thing, and that wrong thing is always the worst potential thing that you could have done. And when things go wrong, it's just, yeah, that feeling of being cheated, being screwed. It's not your fault. These things happen to you. You split on the split, that sort of thing. When you look at symptoms, by itself, splitting may seem almost commonplace, a behavior easily attributed to any number of individuals we know, maybe even ourselves. However, splitting in BPD is considered a consistent and distorted behavior, usually accompanied by other symptoms such as acting out, denial, emotional hypochondria. That's a big word, isn't it? Omnipotence, the belief that you possess superiority in intelligence or power. Yeah, I'm not omnipotent. Passive aggression, lots of that in my life. Projection, projective identification, denying your own feelings, projecting them onto somebody else, and then behaving toward that person in the way that forces them to respond to you with the feelings that you projected onto them. Yeah. It's all very histrionic. It's all very controlling, isn't it? Acting out, getting people to deal with your thing. And it's not meant as a method of control. That's, or maybe it is. Maybe it is meant as a method of control, but it's another one of those out of fear things, isn't it? Like, your brain is always having a go at you. It's always causing these problems. It's always playing tricks on you and telling you that you've done the wrong thing and that you've done the most awful thing or the best thing. And when you're trying to deal with that, when you're trying to just stick with a decision and everything inside of you is telling you that you've made the wrong choice because you're splitting on that decision, it makes you hell to be around because you are all of these things. You are passive aggressive, you project, you go through denial, you get angry and frustrated and all those sorts of things. Because why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Why can't you just make a decision and stick with it? It's so frustrating. So, you know, it's such a horrible thing to live with. Diagnosis and management of splitting. I mean, really, do you think? Oh, now we're sort of. This is BPD now. Let's move. I had a different one as well because these things. The 11 things people with borderline personality disorder do that mean I'm splitting. And this sort of covers a few things, but there's so many facets to it. There are so many elements to it that it is so difficult to cover them all in one thing without writing a book. Because you kind of wanna. There's a desire to do that. It's an odd one. Saying hurtful things. I say hurtful things to get out of my pain. Then I almost immediately apologize and beg them not to leave. Yeah, that's the thing. Hang on. Yeah, trying not to sneeze into the microphone. Hang on, is that a mute? Oh, it is. I've got a mute button. That's cool. That's the projecting thing. And it's like you don't know how to express yourself. That was how I deal with it. I didn't know how to express how I felt, so I would make somebody else feel how I felt. And I knew I was doing it, but I didn't know I was doing it. That I know that doesn't make sense, and it's difficult to sort of put into words. But that is what I used to do. Like, just making somebody else feel bad, bringing them down to your level, and it's your way of communicating what you feel, what you're going through, for a lot of things in BPD and MPD, in fact, this I become vile to them. I say horrible things that will make them want to leave me, so that I don't have to muster up the courage to leave myself. And I'd rather have someone to blame other than myself. These are all things I've done. Splitting on people, with it being a fear and a defense mechanism, you also have the leaving people before they leave you element of it. So again, that was something that I've done several times, where you think people are going to fall out with you, or you're so convinced that they're going to, that you'll make any bit of their behavior look like that's an further indication that they're going to abandon you one way or another. And so you abandon them first, because that's the whole "you can't find me, I quit" kind of thing, right? The final bit of rebellion and throwback. And this is why you often have to, backpedal sometimes. There are people I've known for sort of 20 plus years at this point, that I have Facebook friendships that go back a couple of years. And it's really awkward now when you get the Facebook pop up of "you and so have been friends for 5 years," and you're like, no, we've been friends since sort of 2000, 2001. What you're referring to, Facebook, is that time that I split on them and unfriended everybody, and then had to go and make phone calls and like, "I'm sorry I did that, I didn't mean it, I know you're not really conspiring against me, I know you're not evil," and all of that, and make friends with everybody again. And that constant reminder of it is such a horrible thing to live with. Honestly, it's such a pain. And yet, what can you do? It all seems so clear in the moment. It all seems so clear. And you run it by other people sometimes. You split. You try and, because you don't split in on everyone all the time, right? You've got people you're not splitting on. I've tried to talk things through, and you can make an interesting case. You can also get stuck in your thinking so much that running it by someone else doesn't help, because you can't hear them objecting. And if they object, you've got a counter argument for everything. What do we have? Number 2, being emotionally detached from others. My replies become cold and one-worded, or I just straight up end up ignoring the person because I feel so hurt and offended. Yeah, we just get rude, right? We just get cold and distant because, again, why wouldn't you? If you're splitting off on somebody and you've decided that they're human garbage or whatever it is you decide, then that's it. It's such a pain. Sorry, I distracted myself by just glancing away from the screen, and I saw something and just lost where I was. Number 3, overanalyzing. Again, that's what we do. We overanalyze, and it becomes potentially paralyzing. That's a Steve Jobs thing, right? When the guy had no furniture in his house for the longest time because he couldn't decide which was the best furniture. So he just had no furniture. And that isn't a good way to live your life if you can help it, And when you start overanalyzing people's behavior so that you can split on a person and go, well, they did this and then they did that, and they could only have wanted to do that if they thought this, and all of that kind of overanalyzing, and you'll spend nights awake over it and thinking and plotting like you are Poirot, figuring out everything, getting it all figured out, and then driving yourself mad with it, only to often find out, more often than not, that you are completely wrong, because you assign far too much thought to somebody. You assign so much motivation that isn't there, and I keep referencing videos. You're not the best judge of that sort of thing because you've got BPD and possibly MPD, right? Who are we to judge what neurotypical people are thinking? Ghosting people, common one. I mean, we're into sort of similar stuff, right? Because it's such a vague, this is such a vague thing. 11 things people with borderline personality do that mean I'm splitting. Ghosting people. I guess, yeah, that comes out in various ways. Just deciding they're bad. I've never done a lot of ghosting people, to be honest. If people are talking to me, I tend to keep talking to them. That's the thing. If people just keep talking to me, I rarely ghost people. I can't think of a time when I've done it really through splitting. It's not my style, but some people do like to sort of just fade back. I think that's cancelling plans, isolating. That's a similar thing to ghosting people. When you're feeling bad about a lot of things, it does feel easier to just take a step back. And it's self-punishing as well, which is ideal for somebody with BPD. If I can make myself feel worse, then why would I not do that? That's what we do, right? So if you can wrap yourself up in a blanket of sadness, I'm splitting on this, everything's bad, I don't deserve people, I'm such a bad person, I don't deserve love, I don't deserve anything, and you wrap yourself up in your blanket of sadness and you retreat away, and you ghost people and you ignore them, and you do all the, you isolate, you block people on social media, you cancel plans, you're not going to parties when you're in that kind of mood. Oh, jumping to conclusions. See, I just said that with the overanalyzing thing. This is a dodgy article, I'll be perfectly honest with you. But I like the dodgy ones. These all point to pretty much the same thing, exploding at little things, getting irritable. Is that not the same thing? That's the same thing. That is the same thing. Isolating and cancelling plans, also similar things. Whatever. And feeling physically repulsed by somebody. I don't know. I've definitely had times when I didn't want to be touched, where I just wanted to be left alone. I don't know if that happened to me because I was splitting on somebody, but your mileage may vary. None of this stuff, I would say, it didn't happen to me, so it's not a thing. This stuff is so wide ranging. Yeah, I said in the chat room, half-eaten floor burger. Nice name. I've never been able to block someone from being angry at them because of my fear of abandonment is too strong. Yeah, that's it, really. I mean, you can block people and block people, right? But ultimately, you end up alone. And that's no good. But then if you're self-punishing, if you've decided you don't deserve love, you don't deserve friends or relationships or whatever, and you're retreating away. I have to reiterate every time this comes up because I think it's such an important thing that we forget. Once again, nobody deserves anything. It's a made-up concept, right? It's actually meaningless. Nobody deserves anything. And when you look, it's the concept of deserving stuff is something we tell to children to make them behave. And it has no bearing in the real world whatsoever. There is nothing in the adult world where deserving something is really a thing. When you look at who gets what and what kind of people get what in the world, talk to me, show me examples of people deserving stuff. Does Jeff Bezos deserve to be the richest person that there's ever been? Does Bill Gates deserve it? Does Elon Musk deserve? Does anyone deserve that? But they have it. So this idea that any of us deserve something is just made up. It doesn't mean anything. It's rubbish. People get what they get. It's a combination of privilege and of determination and intelligence and mental health and so many things, right? And that's it. That's the deciding factor. No one deserves anything. And if you think you do, that's entitlement. Really, isn't it? What makes you so special? You deserve anything. You deserve what you can get. Whatever that is that your life has given you the resources to get. Um And so this idea that you don't deserve friends or love or attention or company or relationships or whatever, it's rubbish. It's utter rubbish. I won't have it, and I won't agree with you that you don't deserve things. I won't tolerate that. Um because it's a lie, and I'm not going to perpetuate lies for you. I'm wondering if I have an allergy thing going on, by the way. It's that time of year, isn't it? It might be a hay fever year for me. But anyway, yeah, I don't like this idea of isolating because we don't deserve love, because we don't deserve whatever. No. Go to a different channel for support on that. I won't have it. You absolutely should have these things in your life. And having all those things we feel we don't deserve because we've split on ourselves, it's just not true. You need those things. Otherwise, you're not going to get better. And if you don't want those things, what are you aiming to get better for? Right? You know, if you're just a person in total isolation, who cares? You want to be part of the world. You want to do something. You want that human interaction in a life. And so you need to unsplit on things, which takes time and is difficult, but you absolutely do deserve it. Why wouldn't you deserve it? What a concept. I think you can support people through this, right? It is currently, let me look it up, right? Actually my most watched video in terms of, it's not got the most views of any video yet. So your friend with BPD has split on you. But it is, God, yeah, it's had the most views in the last month, and it came out nearly a year ago. I love that video. So your friend with BPD is split on you. You can totally support people through this, but it gets hard, right? Because some of this might involve you going through a lot with them. You know, when I'm talking about splitting on people, who knows how you might have treated them, the things you said. I have said some stuff that I've never even dared apologize for, right? It's that bad. Like, you don't get to apologize for that even. You just have to leave that person alone for the rest of your lives. It was that bad what I said. I said some horrible things. And so to what, nobody's under any obligation to support me through that. We saw in that article that so much splitting on people involves cutting them off and being rude and being horrible and being frustrated and repulsed by them was actually a thing. All kinds of stuff. How can somebody support you through that and put up with you? And it must be hard. And I think it must depend on what you've put them through. See, some of my friends that I split on, especially the ones that, I've previously split on that I've made friends with again, they've known me long enough to be like, oh, this is a thing Rich does, right? He'll throw some sort of tantrum, storm off, and then come back with his tail between his legs a bit later and just sit down quietly. And we understand he has this thing. And I've managed to keep my outbursts and abuse and all of that stuff to a bare minimum. And so I've always been lucky enough with with the people that matter most to me to be sort of welcomed back. And it's just like I can just storm out the room for a bit and come back, and they understand why I had to storm out the room, and no one really has to say anything. And that's a wonderful situation to be in, right? That is just a it's like that's what Rich does. And I love them so much for that. I really do. It's such a great thing. But the people that I have been far worse to, right? The people who over the years I have said some nasty stuff to, I've not even tried with some of them. Really. I mean, to what end? To what end? To get them to forgive me, to get them to understand what I did and why. Yeah, that would be great, but I really hurt them. I said some really bad things, and so I don't need to. Like I say, sometimes you just have to feel when to totally just remove yourself. And there are lots of those. They're tough, they're not fun. They're really not fun. Um, but what can you do? You can just work on not doing it in the first place, right? And if you can at least get to a point where you're not really upsetting people, maybe more people will be willing to support you through it. I mean, I've never tried to support someone else through it, so I don't know what that's like. I only know what it's like being supported through it. It's very odd being supported through it when you're splitting on the person that's trying to support you, or splitting on it something related to that. It's so difficult to live with, and I think the closer someone is to you, the harder it is for them to live with it and deal with it, right? Because they're getting the full brunt of it all the time. And it could be making you just a difficult person to live with, a difficult person to do things with, or go out with, or whatever. God, when you look at the number of things you could actually split on and where that could go to. Like, I'm not going to anything but that restaurant. I'm not going anywhere but that cinema chain. I'm not getting any taxi from anything but that one company. This could spread out just to make your life hell. And in some ways, I don't know, could this be one area where BPD sort of, you can see OCD from it? It's not bumping up against it. It's not the same thing. But you can see some actual cluster A stuff over there. You know? And it's worrying. It's that debilitating stuff that I've split on everything and everything. There's a correct way and a wrong way of everything. So we have to do everything the correct way. And if we do it the wrong way, everything's going wrong. And things will be. That's the other. When things go wrong, they don't just go wrong. Everything is a complete disaster. Everything is the end of the world. Everything is just falling apart because this one thing's gone wrong. And now it's all ruined. Because there's no black and white. There's no middle ground. And that's a question that I am asked directly in therapy a lot. Is there somewhere between those two things you've talked about? And very often that will stop me in my tracks. And you have to like, yeah, of course there is. Because of course there is. You know? And I still forget. I will get caught up in a situation, get caught up in emotion, get caught up in all sorts of things, and you forget that there is this middle ground. It's another thing you sort of have to practice. And it's a difficult thing because you're so often convinced that you're right anyway. It's a bit like the narcissism in a sense. Why would you seek out help if you're perfect? Why would you question how right you are if you're convinced you're right? Nevertheless, you have to do it. It's it feels a bit like spell checking every word, like taking the time, like writing an essay by hand. Do you remember writing things before spell check? I remember this, right? You used to have a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper, which is that stuff in printers. And you would write words with your hand. And occasionally you would come to a word you didn't know how to spell. And you would get a dictionary and look it up and copy it out of there. But you didn't do that with every word. A lot of words you knew how to spell, right? And occasionally there's this other one of words that you thought you knew how to spell, but you don't. And I remember coming across one of these words as a kid and being asked by my dad, why didn't you look it up? Like, because I thought I knew how to spell it. Well, you should have looked it up. But why would I? I didn't look up all the other words. You have this bit you have to reach, this mark of, I know enough. And I only have to look up these other things, right? And when you've got BPD and you're making big emotional decisions about things and having big feelings about things, it feels like it's stuff that passes the threshold into this, I know I'm right kind of thing. I don't need to look it up. I know I'm right. It feels so certain. I've looked at all my evidence. I've analyzed this for days and days and days and weeks. I've laid awake at night studying people's motivations and body language and speech inflections and so many different things. I've come to the conclusion that I'm right. Why would I question that I might have this wrong? And that's fine for most people, but we're not most people. We've got BPD. And we split on things, and we split on people, and we split on events and decisions and all of this sort of thing. So I kind of am reaching the point where if I feel very emotional about anything, I kind of have to ask these questions. Is there something between the positive thing and the negative thing that you feel? Is something all good or all bad? Is that person all good or all bad? Did they do it to hurt you, to not hurt you? Really? And I'll be so sure about stuff. I'll have so much evidence in support of whatever thing I have concocted in my head, in whatever situation it is. And I'll forget that I should look it up. I should analyze my decision even more. Because I'm usually wrong, right? I've reached that point. I'm usually wrong. It's usually the wrong decision to have arrived at. So why not question it? And I might save myself a lot of stress in the process. That's what I tend to do. It's sort of working. I still do it, right? I still split on things. It strikes me as one of the things that is always there and will forever be there. I'm not going to get over splitting on things. All I can do is choose to regulate my behavior based on what I feel. And that will have varying levels of success over the years. Right? I can get better at it. I can practice. I can try and get better at identifying when I'm splitting and what I'm splitting over. But the splitting is always going to happen. And so I can just choose to identify it and control it. Ask those questions, analyze my own analyzation. It's taking a step back, I guess. You know, I get some mileage out of trying to make something be the opposite to what I think it is. Which is what I'm. So, for example, if I've decided that somebody has become all bad, that they have negative motivation for something, and I have all the evidence I feel I need to assign that negative motivation to them, and I'm so very sure about it. Now, 99 times out of 100, I'm wrong, so it's time to overanalyze this, and I'm probably feeling so very emotional. If I'm doing something like working out evidence as to why somebody has upset me or done wrong to me, I'm gonna be in an emotional state with that. And so with people's motivations, I then try and explain, right, so if I've decided it's bad, well, is there a way I can explain it to be good? And try and do that. Right? Try and let's make there be a possible good explanation. And usually you can come up with something, right? I can't think of a time when I've not managed it one way or another. Of coming up with a possible, why is this a good thing this person's done? And usually you can sort of, once you throw in doubt, once you throw in that reasonable doubt that, this could be wrong, it does feel right, but this could also be right, then you got to shut it down. You sort of trip yourself up a bit. I think that's what I found for me. Again, will it work for you? I don't know. Good luck. I hope it does. It's what works for me. I work on a very logical level, and I can talk myself out of stuff or into stuff with logic. And some things become inescapable and unavoidable and that sort of thing, and that becomes one of those things. So that helps. That does help. So yeah, I'm actually going to leave it here for tonight. I have no idea how long I've been going. Recording for an hour. Hey, that's good. Thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you for listening. Please jump over to the Patreon at patreon.com/earlymorningbarking, where there's extra stuff. And to be honest, I really appreciate and really need your support. So anything you can do is always appreciated. I need to get something happening for super chats on the live streams, don't I? Because I have super chats now. And yeah, I'm supposed to be raising my income, all of that. I'll think of stuff. Suggestions are always welcome. So you lot take care. This will be on the channel as usual. I'll be back next Monday with a live stream. Watch out for Monday, Wednesday, Friday videos. Check out the Patreon with extra stuff on their podcasts and videos. And there's the podcasts over on Spreaker and iTunes and Spotify, the Early Morning Barking podcast, which I try and do on Tuesdays. And yeah, I think that's everything for now. You take care. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.